Hey everyone, and welcome to one of my drawing lessons for YouTube. Today what I'm going to do is just draw an old house, and I've got 4 different pencils I'll be using here. They're Prismacolor drawing pencils. I've got a 6B, an HB, a B, and a 4H. And I'm going to start out with the 4H. If you're new to drawing, these numbers just mean what the hardness of the lead is. H pencils are harder, which means they create lighter lines and sometimes more fine lines. B pencils are softer lead and they produce darker lines and maybe thicker lines sometimes. And an HB is kind of like in the middle. So we'll be using these 4 pencils to start with. I'm going to start with 4H because I want to start out with some really light lines. And I'll be using a kneaded eraser, ruler, and I also have some Prismacolor white pencils that we'll be using for highlights. So to start off, what I want to do is just do a really light sketch of my house, and I'll have an image come up here of the house. And you can also go to my website, www.timgagnon.com, for a lesson page where you can see a larger reference photo of this house so you can sketch along. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to kind of determine the angle of the roof. This is a 2-point perspective drawing, which means that on the horizon line, our linear perspective, our lines are going to be vanishing off to 2 different vanishing points. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. But the first thing I want to do is just kind of determine my first roof line. And I'm going to start with the left side of the house. And what I'm going to do is put my ruler even or level on my paper and then kind of look at my reference photo. And I can see that there's a little bit of a tilt to the roof. Okay, so I'm going to just draw a really light line like that to determine that that is the starting point for my roof. It's got a little bit of a tilt to it. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to freehand. The roof overlaps the second roof over here. So I want to make sure I leave enough room so I can fit the house over on this right hand side. So I'm just going to erase a little piece of my line, and it comes in a little bit right here, and then the beginning I'm going to start it right about here, and I'm going to look at my angle again. You can use your ruler if you want to, but I'm just going to freehand it. If I look at my angle really closely, I've got a little piece that comes up like this, and it creates this angle. So if you're thinking about angles, a 90-degree angle obviously is like an L. So I always think in terms of 90-degree angles. If it's not a 90-degree angle, how much do I need to take that L piece of the angle and bring it down or up? And that's how I kind of think about when I look at these angles. Okay, this is a 90-degree angle right here, but the angle I'm looking for is further down. It's an obtuse angle. So this is where your geometry lessons or your classes growing up kind of come in. This next piece of the roof comes up, and again I want to look at the angle, and it's actually, this is a tough one. Once you get this little piece here, this next part is a little bit tougher. It's hard to determine the how much of an angle there is because it kind of blends into the sky a little bit, but kind of comes up like this, and then there's that stopping point right here. So I want to just now kind of bring this where this roof connects. I want to bring this little piece down. And again, I'm looking at the angle. And I'm kind of looking at this Z shape, this lightning bolt shape here, to determine how far in am I going to put this little line. And I know that the roof comes in a little bit, but if you just look at the overall shape of this zigzag, it's a little bit easier to determine where that little piece comes in. Okay, so now we kind of have this roof line comes up to about here, and then it starts coming up. So again, if you take your ruler and hold it flat or level at that point of where the line changes direction, and you look at your reference photo, what you can do is just twist your ruler up until you kind of get that similar angle that you can see on your reference photo. When I look at the reference photo, I look at the ending point and how far away it is from the top of the image, and that kind of helps you determine how sharp of an angle that is. So if I look at my reference photo and just twist on that point, I know it's right about there. And I'm just going to draw a light line up. It might be too long. It's okay if it is. Okay, next what I'm going to do is find where the chimney starts. And again, thinking in terms of right angles, it's about right here. The chimney comes up and there's a little cinder block piece, and it comes in a little bit and then comes straight up. Okay, and then since we're doing the 2-point perspective, it comes up a little bit. Then straight across. Okay, and then what we can do next is determine how far from this point of the chimney, the edge, the right edge, how far further does the roof travel? And it's not much. It's almost the same. If you look on this side here, this line right there, that's almost about the same distance. So it's about here. Okay? So if you look at this, the chimney is almost in the center of the roof. It's pretty much in the center. So you want to look. Always want to kind of look at those things, like how far is the chimney in this line? Is it in the middle? Is it left middle, right middle? And then you can determine, once you have the chimney in the right place, well, how much further does the roof go from that right point of the chimney? And those are the things I'm always thinking about when I'm drawing or painting. So comes to about here. It's really about split 50-50. And then what I want to do is kind of create this triangular roof shape. And again, if you want to, you can use your ruler. Sometimes people find it a little bit easier to use the ruler, but I'm just going to freehand it. Okay, and it ends about there, and then this line kind of comes down. So if you look at this, this is a triangle, obviously, and if you remember your geometry classes, it's kind of like an isosceles triangle. These two lines are about the same, and this one's shorter. So I hated geometry, and it wasn't really something I enjoyed doing very much. But it does come in handy when drawing houses, and I'm not an architect, that's for sure, but I am an artist, so it does come in handy for this, and not really too much for other things in painting, but mostly just houses. Next, what I want to do is I want to kind of draw in this other roof line coming up, and again, another geometry thing. This line and this line are parallel. So you want to make sure that you've got your lines pretty accurate here. Just taking a look myself. Okay, so these lines, this line up here, this roof line, and this one are parallel lines. So you can kind of just bring your ruler down. Just lightly draw that out. One thing I'm going to adjust is this line just a little bit. I'm actually going to bring this line up a little bit further. Change the angle slightly. Okay, then again looking at angles. Okay, I'm going to erase some of these extra lines that are showing up now. Okay, next what I want to do is I want to just really lightly sketch the wood underneath the roof. Okay, and then I'm going to bring this piece down. That's a little too sharp of an angle. It's really just a slight change in direction. Okay, and what I like to do at the end, and I'm going to just bring this is a shadow line, but I'm going to bring this down too, because it's pretty much the same thickness of this if you include the wood and the shadow, and it just is helpful for me to see that in my reference. What I like to do at the end is take all these basic lines and take a darker pencil and then define them a little bit more. So if I have any little mistakes here and there, which I'm sure I do, got a couple I can see already, I can then adjust those mistakes. So okay, once I've got this nice shape in there now, I've got this roof line coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this way, and I'm just measuring with my eye how far out this piece comes. Let's say it comes to about here. Just want to eye it a little bit. What I'll do is I'll erase this piece, take a look. And that looks pretty good. And then again, what I want to do is look at my angles. I've got a little drop off here, and a very small triangle here. And then this line here comes down. Again, looking at my angles, it's definitely not a 90-degree angle, but it comes down pretty straight. Okay, I'm bringing this roof line down now. Again, looking at my overall shapes. Well, I like to look at this little kind of upside down V shape here and try to figure out how wide is this little piece, because that's one of those little important pieces in your drawing. So that's another thing I look at, is how wide certain things are. And again, you know, I will touch this up with a darker pencil here in a little bit. Another thing, since we're talking about two-point perspective and vanishing point, when you have lines that are parallel like this, most of your lines are going to be parallel. So whatever angle this is, this line will be the same, and any other lines that are trailing off above the horizon line. So if your horizon line is here and these lines are above the horizon line, they're going to trail down and they're all going to be parallel. So this line, this line, this line, they're all going to be parallel and trail down towards the vanishing point. Any line below the horizon line is going to trail up. So down here at the bottom of the house, we'll have the side of the house eventually, and it's going to trail up to the vanishing point. Same with if there's a line over here, which I don't think there is, but over here would trail up. Over here on this side of the house will trail up to the vanishing point, and they're all going to be pretty parallel to each other. There'll be some slight variation just because it's an old house and it's not perfectly put together. It's kind of deteriorated over time, so there will be a few little things here and there. But for the most part, any of the lines above the horizon line are going to trail down at a parallel level, and anything below are going to trail up at a parallel level. Okay, another thing, even if there's not lines, so let's say the end of this roof point here is about here. So let's just, we can help determine how low it is over here. We've got this little angle in here, and it comes down to about this point right here. So that's about right. Another thing, this roof line, this corner right here of this roof right here, this corner and this corner are on the same plane, so the same line. So if these two corners are on the same line or same plane and it's above the horizon line, that means that this roof point is going to be lower, because if it's on that line, remember the lines trail down to the vanishing point. If you have 2 points like this corner of the house and this corner of the house over here, that's on the same plane or line too. If that's below the horizon line, then this point is going to be higher because the line's going to trail up. So those are all little things you can keep in mind to really create this three-dimensional shape to your house. Okay, now what I want to do is just bring this edge down. And I'm going to start sketching in some of the shapes that I see. Got this big kind of open area on the house that's kind of deteriorated. The siding's fallen off a little bit. There's a little piece of the roof sticking out. Over here. And then you have this little side entry for probably what is a basement. Actually should probably be a little bit higher, so we've got a little space here. This comes down. Okay, this has a slight angle up. Okay, so the house is about this tall because we've gotten to the point now where we've drawn in this little side building, and we can see the ground coming up here, connects up to the side of the house. There's just this little piece right here, this little dark piece, and the land comes across like that, and it kind of goes up at an angle a little bit, but we'll get to the land over here on this right hand side in a minute. I want to get back to over here and I want to determine where we've got this little piece in here. I want to determine where the house starts to come down, and it comes in just a little bit from this corner roof right here. Comes in just a little bit and goes straight down. Okay, now I'm going to take this piece of the roof and determine how far in. It's just a little bit in, and again straight down. And how you can draw a straight line is if you look at this edge of the paper and your pencil, hold it out a ways. If you hold it like this, you can't really see. So if you hold your pencil out, just use the tip, you can kind of look and make sure you're making this line parallel to the edge of your paper. You don't really need a ruler. Okay, so it's starting to come along now. You can kind of see the overall shape of the house now. Another thing I want to do is I want to bring this line down here, and I want to try to determine, does this line start to come down? Well, it should, because it's below the horizon line, so this should be a really gradual change down. Remember, these lines are pretty much parallel, but once you get below the horizon line, the direction is going to change. So these two lines actually will connect up at the vanishing point. So if the vanishing point was right here, they would connect up. It's not that drastic of an angle. The vanishing point is way out here somewhere, way over there. So this line is going to gradually come up, and this line is going to gradually go down, and they would meet at the vanishing point. So that's how you can tell if this line is up or down. It's below the horizon line, so I know it's going to be a little bit at a downward angle. Okay, and this line, for the most part, is pretty straight across. It's a little bit down, and that's because we get into the 2-point perspective thing, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, so since we're talking about 2-point perspective, we're looking at this corner of the house and this corner. And when you see a corner of a house, you're dealing with 2-point perspective automatically. That's because you've got lines trailing off to the left here, to this vanishing point, and then also the face of the house isn't perfectly square on, so that means that these lines are also trailing off to a vanishing point way over here somewhere. So that's why this line right here is going to be a slight descending line, and this one, they will come and meet at a point over here. It's very slight though. So this one as well really technically goes up a little bit, but it's so slight. It's the same with this. Since this is above the horizon line, like we said, this line comes down a little bit. That's what we said right in the beginning. And that's because these lines will go off and trail off and meet that vanishing point way out to the right. Okay, so we kind of have everything set up here, and we want to start sketching in the windows a little bit. And the windows all kind of travel on those same lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at reference points here. The windows, the bottom of these windows are below this roof line right here, this corner. So this line and this line, the bottom of these windows is going to be parallel. So I'm going to just draw some lines like that are parallel. And then this window down a little bit further is also on that same line. Maybe not quite as sharp here, so we'll flatten these out a little bit. Okay, but we have that little window. It's kind of a broken, it's popping out of its frame a little bit. We'll just draw that in like that. And then over here, these are really kind of thin shapes. Just a little space between them. And then this one goes under the roof a little bit. It's a little bit wider since it's a little bit closer to us. Okay, now we have this little metal piece on the roof. So we can draw that all the way across. It's okay if you draw through some of your lines, because these are still really light lines, and that's why it's nice to draw with these light lines to start with. I'm going to start with this roof line over here, and we've got these really interesting shapes coming out of here. And this one's a little bit more hard to determine, but again, I'm not trying to harp on this too much, but this line to this little window roof line is going to come up a little bit because this roof line will trail down to our vanishing point way over here. So just keep that in mind. This isn't a perfectly straight line out. It's a little bit of an angle. And a little bit of an angle down. We want to bring this up a little bit higher. And then this little piece here, there's a little bit of an angle. And you can see where the windows cut in. There's this little triangle right there. Okay, so I was a little quiet there for a second, but I was just concentrating. When I'm looking at all these things, I'm looking at all those angles we talked about before and trying to determine where everything's going to end up. And I'm always looking at little reference points. So we've got this little line here, which again is descending this way a little bit. This line's descending slightly that way, and then this line's descending slightly this way, because this is the face, and remember the face is trailing off to this point, and this roof line is trailing off to the other horizon point, the vanishing point. So this is well above the horizon line, so you know it's going to be down a little bit. Okay, then we can sketch the window in within the frame. I probably need to make this piece a little bit wider. Okay, I'm going to draw in the entire window here. Okay, and one mistake I can see already is I made these lines going up rather than down. So that's a really important thing. This line should actually be coming down this way, and this line should be coming up like that. So I'll just fix that. It's good to catch mistakes so I can point them out to you guys too. Okay, so these lines should be trailing up like that. And there's a big shadow right here, which I'm just going to block that in a little bit just because it makes it a little bit more easy to reference some other things. So let's see here, we'll bring this line up right here just a little bit. Okay, next what we want to do is go over a little bit and put in the next window, which should fit in about that space there. So if we look at this, this roof line comes in if we move over just a little bit, it should start about here. We'll just erase these lines a little bit so we can put in our window. So this one should be slightly higher . Than this one, because again we're on these planes where this line is trailing down and these lines are trailing down to our horizon line over to the right. This line again trailing down. We want to keep all these little lines here, so this line and this line should really be pretty parallel. You can even draw a line like this if you want to determine where your the bottom of your window will end up. So it should be, again, on that parallel line, or that plane, going off into the distance. Again, this line should line right up over here. This line should line up over here. And then there's a little divider in the window. Okay, so we're getting there now. I just want to draw in this little piece here. Okay, so we have this little, we've got the border of the windows down here, this on this line right here. Okay, and we've got this little piece of the house that I was talking about earlier that kind of deteriorated. The siding came off a little bit. Again, I'm trying to keep all my lines parallel, especially these lines going across. Okay, and then we have a window that's right below this window here. So I'm just going to draw these side the lines that are on the sides of the window like that. Then we know that this kind of trails down a little bit, and so does this line. Then we have a door, which again, keep those lines on the same plane trailing out this way. And another window over here. a little bit closer to the door. Then another window right next to it, still on that same plane. Goes right up to the edge of the house. I'll just tidy that window up a little bit. So it's on this line right here. And this one's almost on the horizon line, so it's, rather than too much of a slope down, it's almost straight across. Okay, next what I want to do is I want to bring this corner of the house, I'm going to just define it a little bit better. We've got that stripe that's kind of that deteriorated area, and this is coming up because now we're on a different plane that's going trailing down to the other horizon line or vanishing point. So this little piece is going to come up like that. It's going to be more parallel with this line here. Okay, and then at this corner point here, this line will come pretty much straight down. Again, hold the pencil out so you can see your other lines to try to make them as parallel as you can. Okay, now these windows over here, again just drawing the side lines of the windows to start with. Again, they're on this plane coming down. Which helps me see another little mistake. So this line here is slightly going down where these windows are. This roof line should be a little bit further down. Because it should be on this same kind of plane right there. Okay, and then I'm going to draw these some more lines right here for these other two windows. Okay, so now we've got kind of our overall shape, and we've got one more window up here, which I forgot about. It's a little bit of a smaller window. Okay, so now we've got pretty much all of our basic lines in there. Now what I want to do is make just a few adjustments. And one thing I can see right away is I want to raise this line up just a little bit higher. Okay, and I want to start the roof a little bit lower like this, come up, and this down here a little bit lower, coming up. Okay, what I'm going to do now is take my B pencil, which is a softer lead, and I'm going to start defining some of my house here. I'm going to start shading as well, so I'm going to do a little bit of cross hatching. Okay, this side of the house over here is going to be more in shadow, so I really want to make some of these lines a little bit darker. I've got a whole shadow right here, and I'm just going to do some hatch marks to determine that, and then some cross hatching for the darker areas. Remember, we're using the B pencil. So we can still go quite a bit darker. Okay, now remember this side over here is all pretty much in shadow. So I'm just going to do just some hash marks like that, just to kind of put that in perspective that this side too, that's in shadow as well. Put a nice dark line out here for the roof. Blocking this shadow right here. This one as well. Okay, now I'm going to draw the landscape just a little bit. Just going to sketch in this line right here. Then maybe there's these trees on the hill. Just going to kind of scrub in a little bit of a line. And there's another tree line right here. We've got a little bit of a shadow right here from the house. And then we have a kind of a one-point perspective field where we've got these lines from the field. Okay, we're on a one-point perspective type shape. And then there's a little hill like this. And then the lines kind of trail up a little bit further. Okay, and then we have the plane that the house is on here. Then we have some trees over on this side, and I'm just going to sketch those in with my pencil. We'll use our artistic license and add maybe just another tree. I like putting these trees in because then you can see the contrast. Comes down to about here. there's that field. So over here I'm just going to block in. And I'm just going to flip this up for a second so I can get the lead to the edge here without messing up the paper too much. Okay, and we'll work on the trees a little bit more a little bit later. Okay, now you need to be a little bit more careful with your hand because you got that lead on there. So another thing I'm going to do is just kind of draw in the road. Okay, while I'm at it, what I'm going to do is take some of my white pencil here and lighten up the horizon. And then put in a few cloud shapes. Okay, next what I'm going to do is take my white pencil and lighten up. This is the brightest point of the house, this white roof line area. Okay, and then over on this side there's a little piece that's lighter. I want to lighten up these little openings here and then around the window. Okay, and then just maybe a little bit on this piece. And I'm just going to do some little dash marks here for the lighter areas where the paint is still on the house. Just really light touches here and there. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a few really light white strokes over there on this side of the house, just to indicate that the house does have some white color to it. Okay, and then on this side, and the reason why I'm doing all this white first is because once you put your black on there, the white doesn't mix well with the graphite. So just putting in some of this white. It doesn't have to be just like the house. I mean, as long as you're mimicking it to a good extent. Okay, I'm using my HB pencil now, and what I'm going to do is switch the angle here so you can see a little bit better. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start shading in a little bit over on the right hand side here, and I'm going to do some hatch marks like this. And then where it's really dark, I'm going to do cross hatching, which is just going in another direction and then crossing up over those areas you already did hatch marks on. So this area here, we'll do a little bit darker lines, do some cross hatching. And I'll show you how I do a little bit more detail to that later. Okay, I've got a little piece of the door hanging off here, so I'm going to draw that in. This little piece, it's like a screen door that's opened up. Gonna do a little hatch marking in here, a little shadow under the door. There's a little bit of a shadow in through here as well. Draw the frames in for these windows here. going to take my white pencil now. Shade in this door. And then the trim around these windows. Can also do the trim around these windows. However, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can just kind of suggest these things. Okay, and I'm still going to color this in a little bit whiter, but I'm going to do some shading over it. So this piece on the left is the brightest, but these pieces you can shade in with a little bit of white. Okay, I'm going to go back to my HB pencil, and I'm going to do some hatch marks on the roof, since the roof is a darker value. I'm just going to turn my notebook here, sketchbook, so this side should be just slightly darker than this front piece. Okay, and then you can do a little bit of a shadow from the chimney. Okay, and then this is obviously a little bit darker, so I'm going to do some hatch marks on that. And some cross hatching. Same for this piece here. But I'm going to make it a little bit lighter overall than this piece, since this piece is in shadow. Okay, I'm going to draw in the little window shape here just really quickly. And then I'm going to color in with my white pencil. Then we'll do a little hatch marking on the window just to kind of give it the idea that it's glass. Okay, then you want to draw in the frame for these windows. You want to make sure your white pencil is really sharp. And then go in and lighten up the frame color. Okay, over on this side of the house, again, I'm going to do some hatch marks with my HB pencil, just indicating that it's in shadow. Same with this side of the little outbuilding. Okay, and then this roof, you can tell I'm Northern Maine by how I say that, is also a little bit darker. So it's about the same value as this roof, or roof, as some people say in other parts of the country. So I'll just do a little bit of hatch marking, cross hatch. And these will make just a little bit darker, since even though they look about the same on the picture, we want to make it look more three-dimensional, so we'll make these just a slightly bit darker in value. Okay, and then we've got this shadow over here. And then we have a shadow underneath this roof line, so we'll do a little hatch marking underneath that. We'll darken this up a little bit on this side, just more cross hatch. Okay, then what you can do, and I'm not going to go and show every little piece of this, but what you can do next is make your ruler really parallel to your roof line, and you can start adding in, just space it evenly each time. You can add in some siding to your house. Okay, and I'm using the HB and drawing really light lines and keeping it parallel to my roof line. In here, these boards are a little bit thicker. And you don't have to do it all the way down. You can skip a few spots, but try to keep it parallel and pretty evenly spaced all the way down. Okay, and then you can do the same over on this side, but now you're parallel with this little line right up here. Again, you don't have to do every single piece, just try to space it evenly and then go down throughout the house. So I'm going to skip ahead, but you can carry that technique all the way through the house. Just keep it parallel with your roof lines throughout the house. Okay, for my next step, I'm just going to take my 6B pencil, and I'm going to sharpen it up. I'm just going to darken some of these lines here. Okay, and I'll also do a little cross hatching on the windows. Okay, so you can just kind of continue around and darken up some of your darkest areas, and then we'll move on to our just final steps. Okay, you can see I darkened my lines. My last step, what I'm going to do is just take my HB pencil, and I'm just going to put in some kind of grassy shapes here and there in around the house. Just some little twigs, maybe you got a little bush here. For the most part, the value of the land is pretty light, so you don't want to overdo it too much. Maybe we'll put the trunk of this tree here. That'll create a little more depth in this area. Most of the grassy stuff is right by the driveway. And we can even kind of shade the driveway a little bit in the dirt by the road. Okay, and I'm just going to do some more, just a few more little hatch marks through the driveway. And maybe some diagonals. Okay, and that just brings the value down, darkens it up a little bit. Okay, so that completes this drawing lesson. It was a lot of fun. Just a few little reminders here. You want to start out with your ruler to get a nice straight line. Try to find the right angle, the correct angle I should say, of the initial line, so that way you can work off of that one. Once you have that, then you just want to keep looking at your angles, make sure they're pretty accurate. If they're not 100% accurate, that's okay, it will still translate really well in your drawing. Just make sure when you're using the 2-point perspective that you have all of your lines above the horizon line going down towards your vanishing point, and any line below the horizon line comes up to the vanishing point. And remember, even things that aren't connected by a line are still on the same plane. Whether it's the edge of a roof or the corner of a roof, it should still line up with that line that's receding or going away to the vanishing point. If you have any questions, you can visit my website, www.timgagnon.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.